Hi everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome to this Sweet Poppy Stencils Inspiration Day. I'm so glad to be here. I hope you've had fun for the past couple of hours with my fellow design team members who brought you some other fun creations. So today I'm going to be using the Hibiscus stencil. I just love it because it's got a gap in the middle where you can type, print, stamp any of your favourite sentiments. The sentiment that I'm using here is from this occasion stamp set. Look at all the different choices that you've got there. So I've chosen Congratulations. I love the brightness of this card, but you can do it in any colourway that you choose. I've created it in blues and that's jolly effective as well. But today, something traditional, bright and fun. I'm going to be using Distress Oxides to colour it. I'm using VersaFine Clear for the stamping. I've got my lovely Sweet Poppy stencil brushes, stencil tape. Now, colours. Distress Oxides. For my greens, I've got Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness. You'll know that I love using more than one tone because it just gives a depth to the colour by using those extra shades. I've got Mustard Seed for the centre of my flowers. And then for the petals, I've got Picked Raspberry and Festive Berries. So that gives that pinky reddy tone. So 12.5 centimetres square is the base card that I made it. And I have taped it down onto my mat with my trusty low-tack tape. And we'll get started. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my stencil brushes here and I'm going to start with the centres. I'm going to start with Mustard Seed. Now I always like to have just a piece of card or paper next to me that I can tap off some of the excess. Because sometimes as you tap your brush onto the ink pad, you get a bit of a blobby bit of ink or paint. So by tapping it off, you get rid of that. So literally, this is super easy, this card, and super effective. So I'm just going into the center of those flowers and with my brush, just gonna create a little circle in the center. Now this is abstract-y art, doesn't have to be perfect. So more or less in the center. Now we're going to bring that pinks and reds into it, so you don't need to be too precious about where it goes. I'm also now going to start with, let me put this away. I'm going to bring my Picked Raspberry in with my brush. So I've got it here. I'm going to be using one of the big ones. Again, I want to start off light, and I'm just going to circular motion. I'm just going to bring it off the tape onto the card and the petals. So you can see I'm starting to get this lovely little glow on the edge of the petals. And I'm keeping it to the edge just for now. That's it. Softly. I like building it up slowly, because you can add more, you can't take it away. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? A lovely even colour. Just going to go carefully around these edges here. Oh, lovely. Look at that. And then I'm going to start in the centre here and start to gently flick the brush with this wrist movement here. Flick the brush and the ink onto the petals from the bottom here. Lovely, look at that. So the colour is building up ever so slowly. So this border around which I've done the sentiment, so I've done some of it's in green and some of it's in the pinks. Not too precious about what it looks like, where it comes, because the colours work well together. Then I'm just going to come in from the bottom here. Again, almost just pushing the ink gently onto the stencil. I love it. Look at it. Then I'm going to come in with my my red, my festive berries. And again, I love doing more than one colour because I just think that it just adds depth to it. So ever so lightly, just going to bring this in a flicking motion with my wrist here. Bring a bit of that red around the edge of those flowers. Just like that. You'll find once you get started with this design, you can't stop because it's so easy and so striking, depending on what colour you do your petals. Oh, look. Now, I might use one of my little brushes here, which I'm just going to rub off on one of my mats, cloths, which I always have to hand. So this had the mustard seed on it. I'm just going to wipe off some of that mustard seed and ink it up with the festive berries. And just come in ever so gently from the edge. This is going to be covered up with the green, so it doesn't really matter. That's why I'm also using two tones in the green. The darker rustic wilderness here is going to enable us to make those leaves stand out really well. So you're just going to play until you come up with something that you love here from these petals. Right, I'm just going to have a little look and see how far I've got. So I'm just going to pick the tape up. I can reposition this tape back again. Now I'm going to leave this top one in place. So I'm going to create a bit of a hinge. You might not be able to see it as I lift it up, but I can, and you get the idea. So because this is taped down, I'm just going to create a bit of a hinge like that. I'm loving the top ones. I need to put a bit of ink further on the bottom. So I'm going to come back in with my tape here. As I say, you see how I can reuse this tape. And I just put it to the side on my mat. And I'll leave it there. I'll use it 3 or so times. And then it starts to get a bit beyond its best, if I'm honest. So here, I needed a bit more pink on these petals. They were looking a bit dull, if I'm honest. Let's come in with my greens. I'm going to start with Mowed Lawn. I always start with a lighter colour and then just add the touches on the edge with the darker colour. So as I said, we need to remember we've got a banner here and you want to create an edge round that. So that's what I'm going to be doing whilst colouring in my leaves. So I've got the base of the Mowed Lawn down. Now I'm going to come in with Rustic Wilderness and just put a bit of this darker green onto the tips of those leaves, because again it just gives it a sharper outline, makes them stand out, but doesn't cover the whole thing, because as we know, leaves have variety and variation in them, and that's what we're trying to do here. I mean, you will have seen some of my other design team mates who've done this with the beautiful brush pens, and that looks stunning too. I need you to take that out, so because I'm not sure if they have, really. I just made that up. Now I'm just going to have a little peek again and make sure that I've covered all the bits using my little hinge idea. Oh yes, I'm loving that. Look at that. Isn't that cute? So I will just, as I said, put that tape to one side, save it for the next time. To clean this, I'll pop this into some warm soapy water, and then once it's clean, I will just leave it on my mat flat like this. I'll show you how I do it. Here. Or I've just got a spritzy bottle full of water, and then I'll just use my cloth. So whilst it's flat, just use my cloth to wipe it off. That way the sharp edges are not likely to get in the way. And then I'll just turn it off, dry it, pat it dry, leave it on the side up like that till it's dry before I put it away. So that's how I clean my stencils. I'm just going to clean a bit of this up, because the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to type our sentiment, or stamp our sentiment, in the centre of our banner here. I'm going to use my stamp press, and I'm also going to use a bit of acetate. So this is a clear piece of acetate here that I've put a cross in the top left hand corner. That is with a Sharpie, black Sharpie pen, and I do that so that I can position my stamp without it touching my card and potentially messing it up. So as I said, occasion stamp set. I'm going to take my congratulations and I'm going to position it there. Close the lid of my stamp press. Pick up my VersaFine Clair. Stamp it onto my stamp there. So you can see now I'm able to position it. Check the positioning before committing to the actual position. So I hope you enjoyed that little trick. Now what I tend to do then is I'll just take this out, keep this butted against the corner, which is where I had it before. And then to clean this, I'll just wipe this off, spritz some water here, wipe it off with my cloth and let it dry for the next time. So now that I know that it's positioned properly, I'll just pop this down using my VersaFine Clair, which always gives me a beautifully crisp finish. Oh, look at that. So crisp, so beautiful. I love it. Okay, so now what I did was, on my original, I just mounted it on a piece of card, contrasting card, which would make the colours pop. This is a bit softer than my original. I actually quite like it though. It's just, so you see what I mean about the different looks you can create using that technique. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you make it, please tag me so that I can ooh and ah at your handiwork. And until the next time, bye for now.